Well, welcome, footy nerds. It's that time of the week again. Time for us two nerds to review the games of the weekend. There's been some very interesting games, a lot of up and down teams. Before we get into it, how's me great mate going? I haven't seen you in a little bit, and this week is very exciting for both of us. We've got another opportunity to grow our show. We won't say names, but at the back end of this week, we're going to be diving and we're going to get real nerdy with some of the superstars of our game and superstars of our past superstars also. So how's me, mate?
Yeah, I'm excited for this week. As you just said, a few exciting things at the back end of the week, which is going to be really cool. And I'm a little bit tired today, brother. I'm a little bit fatigued. I'll tell you what it is. They say in the body clock when you get to, is it past midnight, there's something different that changes in your deep sleep. Well, I had that last night. A bit fatigued, but you know what? We're used to this.
You look tired. You look a bit tired.
Yeah, I was.
It is early too for you.
That's good, bro. I've been getting up early, but it was must have been about 12 o'clock I rolled over and I wasn't asleep yet. So, but you know what? I love being uncomfortable and I'm ready to talk footy because it was a great weekend of footy.
Yeah,
the bipolar rugby league was back.
To be uncomfortable, don't you?
The bipolar weekend of rugby league was back again.
Well, it's been bipolar up and down, and the results are unpredictable, and like it's round 3. Obviously, there's some teams or some players that didn't have any trials, so that was their third game over the weekend. What are your thoughts on it? When do we start seeing teams? Obviously, you can't race away from the top 8 or top 4 or the bottom 8, but you can start to see, when do we start to see teams find their groove and actually like be clear cut above teams? Because at the moment, looking at all the games over the weekend, obviously our first one when we get into it, the Storm over the Panthers, but it's hard to predict who's going to win. Like obviously Newcastle started the season really well, Titans not so, and they go out and pull their pants down. Where's it at for you? What's your thoughts on it?
Well, you sort of see the trend sort of continuing. We've obviously spoke a fair bit about your Manlys when they're playing on the front foot, how they're unstoppable. They came out of the blocks on the weekend. They had 70% possession, and it was just typical Manly. Blew the side off the park at home. Canberra off the park at home. Newcastle, typical Newcastle. They travel, come off a big win at home, and they go and dish that up against the Titans on an away trip. It was just sort of what we're coming to expect from some of these sides. And to answer your question, when's that going to change? What needs to change for some of these sides if they're going to lock themselves in that top 4? You look at the top sides, obviously Cronulla again were great. They're just smoothing along nicely. We've seen that from them over the last couple of years. Melbourne's Melbourne. Penrith, I thought, what an achievement. They would have been disappointed with their performance, but we'll get into Jake Cole a bit later, but I thought he was great. Coming from behind and then to steer his way back in. But, yeah, it's a consistent, inconsistent trend from a lot of teams, if that makes sense.
Is it attitude or is it ability?
It's definitely got to be attitude, but it's a good question. You caught me off guard there. Let me have a think. Is it attitude or is it ability? Well, there's no doubt early in the rounds everyone's attitude is going to be good. It's round 3. Fatigue's not an issue. You're still coming out of the blocks fit and hard from preseason. So I wouldn't say that attitudes in preparation will be off at this point. You wouldn't think. Do you think teams are still trying to understand their DNA? I think that's a better way to put it. I was going to go into that. I think it's more around exactly what you just said. It's your DNA, and we speak about it a lot, right? Use Titans as an example. And on the weekend, they win possession up front. Tino and David Fafita get huge meters, played massive meters, and then all of a sudden Campbell and Brimson play well. We've been critical of the alternative when they're playing off the back foot. So it is definitely that DNA thing, and then the team's understanding. You hear a lot of these sides talk about how they want to play. Not Newcastle. We want to be more of a consistent side. We want to travel well. Then actually doing it is another thing, and that's a habit, and that's obviously turning into what you're talking about into action. And I think that's the biggest gap in the competition, right? The bottom sides we speak about this inconsistency a lot. A lot of the press conferences after games, the coaches sort of saying the same thing on like a broken record week after week. The top sides, the sides that have got their DNA implemented, and they're sort of understanding what they're about, and they got the balance right. They tend to finish in the top four, and it's obviously not rocket science. It's pretty simple way to put it, but the challenge is to find that, to find your consistency, isn't it? Like Does that make sense? But it's just sort of
100% it makes sense. And what I'll say is that we've got two teams at the top of the ladder. The Bulldogs and the Storm have both won 3 games, and at the bottom end of the ladder, well, there's 3 teams. Obviously, Dragons beat the bye on the weekend, but you've still got the Dolphins and the Eels. There's improvement. The Eels fans and the Dolphins fans, not so much the Dragons fans because they only beat the bye, but there's improvement. So there's hope for the Eels, and I want to talk about these more so than the top teams because we expected this. But the Eels and the Dolphins, there was improvements on the weekend. Improvements in parts of their game, not so much the 80 minutes. I thought the Dolphins had an opportunity to win that game 3 times over on the weekend, but they just credit to the Dogs. The Tigers, they fought back, and you listen to Benji after the game, they're just talking about the fight, stay in the fight. But there's an improvement from the teams that are below, and then the teams that are at the top. Obviously, the Dogs and a Storm and the teams that have won 3, but there was a bit of inconsistency in those top teams on the weekend.
They're not trying to be negative, Toddy, but when you said there was improvement from Dolphins and what was the other side you just said?
Eels,
sorry. I still don't think there was in the areas that matter. In the
areas that matter, yes. Individually,
attitude-wise, they fought harder. They scrapped harder, and there was improvement. You're going to get that kind of result when you're 2-0, to start the season. You're going to see effort improvement. What was frustrating for me was, Parramatta had so much opportunities with the ball again, and we're just seeing no creativity, and there's just no footy there. And you said improvement. Well, we're not getting any improvement from them week to week as far as that attack, and we can go into the Dylan Brown situation, the lack of Mitch Moses, but I still think they're in a huge hole there. Yeah, they turned up. Lomax had a big game. Hopgood was impressive, but they're going to get that type of fight when your backs are against the wall. But there's still not much growth in that. And the Dolphins, to me, too. They come out of the blocks really well on the weekend. Nikorima's playing well. Katoa's looking looser. And then all of a sudden, when the momentum swings against them, they turn into that real robotic style again. So, those sort of sides worry me, and I'm not seeing much improvement from them in parts of the game.
I didn't want to touch too much on it, but I'm gonna, because we spoke about it last night. I think it's an opinion. Everyone's got an opinion. If the Eels continue to go down the slope they're going, do they look to their future and move Dylan Brown early, or do they try him else in another position?
I think the answer to that, from my point of view, is who's the option that you're going to bring in.
But that's it. There has to be an option there somewhere for the future. There's got to be someone at the club that, Dean Hawkins plays on the weekend and probably outplays Dylan Brown at 7. He didn't. He took control of all the kicking, which he naturally does anyway. But I thought, there's improvement there. It's
a tough one, isn't it? Because if Dylan Brown doesn't play well and his attitude's not great, that's probably the only reason that Parramatta would then say to Newcastle, can we work out an agreement to move him on now? But if things were going, if his attitude's still good, they need him. They need him around the club to finish the season, and it's way too early to write the year off. They're every chance of coming good. They need Mitch back, obviously, but I don't think moving Dylan on now.
Yeah, I'm not writing the year off. That's why I said a big if.
Yes. But
I want to backtrack it back to a lighter mood. When you spoke about meters before, I commentated on Friday night with the great Shane Webke.
How good is that?
And we're talking about in stats in the game, the meters of Pat Carrigan and meters of Payne Haas. He goes, meters. He goes, I don't like this stat of meters, and this is how we gauge front rowers these days of how many meters they make. He goes, it's a load of shit. And it was so good, like commentating with Webby, because the detail he talks about from a front rower, like from back in the day mentality, like if the fullback drops the ball or the fullback doesn't bring it back or they don't find touch, he goes, the front rows will be blowing up. It was good to actually like listen to like obviously old school front rows. They gauged themselves off how they beat their other front row, I guess, and the physical side of things we're at the moment. When you look at teams or when we talk about outstanding players or players that are performing really well, and I'll touch on Terrell May again, but we spoke about meters, hit-ups, tackles compared to misses and things like that. So it was interesting.
So when you say Webke, it's interesting that what you said. So when you say he doesn't look at meters and stats, well, what does he? What was the theory back then? Like those great front rowers, what it was more around the personal battles and speed of the play?
Yeah, personal battles, just doing what's possible because I think he's got a point to say that people look at their stats after games. That's what he's maybe trying to get across.
Yes.
And then us commentators, us people that sort of dissect the game or people that we always go into stats, how many meters they make. Well, you still might make 50 hit-ups or 20 hit-ups and only run 5 meters, but you still actually have a crack sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, man. It was good to commentate with him because he had a different look to it and he was really good, actually.
He was the king, wasn't he, Webke? Wow.
Oh, so good. So good.
How good was Payne Hasput? Just quickly going off the back of that, like obviously the try at the end, but just he never looks tired, just everything. You can't give him enough compliments. But what was he like live? Off the ball?
He's just off the ball. He's in everything. His kick chase. That's when you say off the ball and when you can watch the game live. Obviously, when you're watching it on TV at home, you're focused in on the things you want to focus in on. But when you're watching the game live and you're commentating it, you see, and obviously because he's a polarising figure, when Reynolds kicks, he's the first to chase. He's down there hunting the middle of the field. So the fullback would be eyes up and they see Payne Haas in the middle. I'm going to just go down here and get a safe tackle off one of the wingers or the centres that are chasing it. And he's just getting better and better. We speak about levels in players and where they can continue to get better, and we touched on it a few times. He's still doing Ramadan, and it was impressive. Like some of his runs on the weekend, I speak to young kids, young front rowers about it. You got to run to space. A lot of front rowers or bigger kids run to bodies to try and bump. And I say to them, if your eyes are and you've got your A defender, B defender, C defender, why do you always kick out to C? Is it an easier run for you? Where's the space? Space is usually inside A. So run to space sometimes. Or find that space and then run to it wherever it is. Obviously, you can't run sideways all the time and get to it. But set yourself in a position in the field. And that's what Payne Haas does. He runs to space.
So explain that, Toddy. So when you're explaining, when you're coaching forwards around that, it's obviously to create one-on-ones and little wins as a middle as opposed to a hit-up where you're getting gang tackled? Is that sort of the message behind that?
Well, if you look at and this has to happen at training. Yeah, you look at a lot of people; they get the pad in front of them, and all the forwards are just practicing their bump and trying to find their front. But they never really show footage, or you never see players practicing to run into actual space. They're running into bodies all the time, teaching themselves that. So if you run to space, if you run inside A, you've got a lazy retreating defender from marker to make the tackle, so it's usually would be a low tackle. Inside A, it's a higher tackle because he's got his retreating marker, so that creates a quick play the ball. If you're going in between A and B, they have to pick who goes high, who goes low. So there's still two defenders. The objective for I see as forwards is, especially when you've got wide A, is to run to space, take that space, and then make it. Because when you go into that A in between A and marker, then the next tackle they have to tighten the defensive line.
Yes, that's
but yeah, I noticed that in Payne. He runs to space a lot.
So good. Carrigan too. He's got a good little crew there, doesn't he? That just, mate, they were just the consistency for them, isn't it? If they complete high, they've been.
That's the word of the day, isn't it? For you, consistency, inconsistency, and consistency.
I
like it.
Maybe I'm striving for consistency today, so that's why I keep saying it.
Because you're tired, mate.
It's like a personal mantra.
Today, I'm chasing consistency. I'm leveling up for consistency today. And that's all right. Yeah. That's how you feel.
A little goal for the day, brother. You know.
That's it. You got to set goals. I speak about goals. I was last week. I'd done some stuff with. Remember David Shillington?
Yes.
He owns a company called Prime Effect, and it's empowerment for people that are struggling to find employment and stuff like that. I spoke there last week about obviously small wins. A lot of people set high goals in life, weekly goals, monthly goals. Why not set daily goals? Set daily goals so you get more green ticks and red crosses, and you slowly start the wins. The more wins build up, the better you get.
I like that.
So that's for you today. I want you to set achievable goal by this afternoon, and you can tick that off, and then that bog around going to bed at 12 o'clock last night will go away.
I'm getting heaps of green ticks today after that. That was inspiring.
Beautiful. Sixes and Sevens is brought to you by Property 360. Property 360 offers a complete property acquisition service designed to deliver quantifiable results for investors.
Their team of passionate acquisition advisors provides privileged insights and conducts thorough market analysis to secure the best real estate deals for your property portfolio.
As the preferred partner of NRL players and staff, Property 360 has proven track record of helping clients grow their wealth beyond life on the field.
Head to property360.com.au to find out more.
Sixes and Sevens is brought to you by Good Day Daily Multivitamins.
If you're looking to take your health a little more seriously and are not quite sure where to start, Good Day is a simple and effective way to get yourself essential vitamins and minerals.
Packed with over 60 health benefits and 100% of your B vitamins, it's the easiest way to feel good fast.
With a delicious passion fruit taste, just pour one sachet into water and you're good to go.
Head to begoodhealth.com.au. Use the code HALVES for 10% off your order. Pair that with a subscription for a 20% discount.
It's the least you could do.
The Melbourne Storm 30 over the Penrith Panthers 24. And it was a juicy one. I was on the couch ready for it. Early in the game, Nathan Cleary goes down. If you're a Penrith fan, our night's done. But it was the opposite. They stayed in the fight. We talk about fight. Obviously, Melbourne were clinical again. Munster and Pappenhausen, they're finding something. They've got that chip on their shoulder. They've got the eye of the tiger look we talk about. But they compete on every play, them two. And Penrith had some opportunities to win the game, but Munster just iced at the end with that kick behind. But the big outs of the game was obviously Nathan with his HIA. Jerome Hughes broke his hand, so he missed a couple of weeks, but he battled on to finish the game. Where did you see it? What did you think of this game?
Yeah, I thought it was a great game for both clubs. Obviously, Storm are just forever consistent. Big start to the game, obviously coming out of the blocks 14-0, but I had a massive respect for Penrith after this game. Obviously, losing Nathan early with that headlock, I think it was Jerome Hughes, wasn't it? It was a bit ugly early in the game. Obviously to lose him, that architect of their whole team. Jake Cole steps up, Blaze Talangi comes on, and I thought they were great, Penrith. To come down from not only 14-0, but without Nathan, who's obviously always that guy that guides them back into it. It was a huge stepping stone for the club and for Jake Cole individually. Who knows what's going to happen this year? Injuries are part of rugby league, and touch wood, Nathan holds up another trophy and keeps on his legacy. But who knows what's going to happen? And things come and go, and you need players to step up. It's a credit to their club and their systems of how good they are. And I just wanted to give him a huge rap because I thought he was really good. What
was the most pleasing part from Jack Cole for you?
We had a hand in a couple of tries, but to come back from a poor start of the game as well. It's hard to chase points, especially against Melbourne. Down there, you get suffocated. We've been down there many a times. It's a difficult place to play. So I thought his composure was really good. Isaiah Yeo, once again, just showed his leadership. He's a halfback in a lock's body. And, he was really taking responsibility of getting their sets on to free up Jake Cole and Blaze Talangi a little bit. But, just huge efforts from them. Like you said, they nearly ended up stealing the game in the end. But, I just wanted to give them a huge rap because I think as a club, to turnover of players, then to lose Nathan again, to go down there in Melbourne, be down on the scoreboard, to then almost win the game was huge. I think for Penrith, though, fast forward in the tape to go back-to-back this year. They're leaking a lot of points for Penrith. They've averaged about 30 points from their first 3 games. I know the scores across the board are blowing out a lot more now in the NRL. We're not seeing the 6-0, 10-0 score lines as much, but I think Ivan Cleary will be disappointed with the 30 points that they've leaked early in the season. So I think for them to keep going back, who am I to tell them they've won 4 comps? But I think that's an area that they need to improve, and I think they'd say that. And for Melbourne, just, as you said, Munster, Pappenhausen. I love Munster's little contest with Liam Martin. I think I read something. He said that
it's
you're a liability.
Liability,
I'll be careful saying that to Munster, that he's a liability, poke the bear, but that's what he did, didn't he? Poke the bear.
Poke the bear, and that's what you get. You get the honey, that's for sure. And he got the honey in the end of the day, old Munster. It's he's just in everything. And we talk about players playing on the front foot, knowing when you've got to run, knowing when you've got to kick, but he seems like he's got that time again. He's got the presence to know when to actually jump down that short side, know when to kick. And he's like that kick from Pappenhausen next to the post, that was off his right foot. He's just crabbing across the field and just rolls onto his right foot, and just knowing that Pappy's going to be there, obviously, is a big one. But I liked Melbourne. They were obviously way above Penrith at points, but I like how Penrith fought back. And when you spoke about Cole, I thought defensively he was unbelievable. He threw his body into him, and he was in everything.
That's obviously why he's got the start, Toddy. Yeah,
it'd have to be
for a lot of reasons. I think looking at him now, he's a more complete player than Blaise Talangi at this point. But defensively, obviously, as you just said, was on display again the other night. That'd be must be the push from preseason. Yeah.
Yeah, and the big one was Jenkins at fullback, and I thought he played really well. He's tough. He knew where he was meant to be, and he had a real crack. It's interesting with Blaise where his development goes. If he goes to a 6, it'll be interesting where they go this weekend. If they bring Schneider, who's a natural 7, to complement Cole, or do they stick with Cole and Blaise this weekend? But obviously, there's wraps on Blaise, and you can see glimpses of it, but obviously Penrith, because they're saying if he stayed at Para, he would have been starting at Para when Moses was out, so he would. They were saying when Moses was out for so long, they should be asking questions to get Blaise back, but I think he's still got a lot to learn if he's going to be an NRL 6 or 7
back to
moving forward. No, well, there was talk, there's speculation.
Yeah.
They're saying like when Parramatta had lost Mitchell Moses for 10 weeks or something, and Blaise wasn't playing at Penrith. Like, obviously, when Blaise signed at Penrith, they thought that he'd be playing there week in, week out consistently, but he hasn't been. He got a chance on the weekend through injury, and then they played Jenkins at fullback. So there's obviously still concerns of where he fits in, or not concerns, but they're just trying to work out its best. And obviously Cleary, the coach, knows best. He moves Jenkins to fullback with the absence of Dylan Edwards. But I thought it was some of the football played, you can see why they're the top. Leaking points or not leaking points. And you can see they're the benchmark, and they're a benchmark for a reason.
Alamotti was good for them, wasn't he?
Mate, there's some Alamotti, Brian Toto there.
Brian Toto's the best. How good is he?
Mate, just when Penrith needs something, he finds it. He finds it, just shrugs blokes off, and he's just a workhorse. Yeah.
They're just never going within themselves, those top sides, do they? Like, you look at those players, they're always asking questions, and whether they're down on the ladder, down on the scoreboard during games, or leading from the front, they just keep asking questions, and that's the biggest difference, isn't it? Obviously, that's what the best players do, but they're just fearless. Everyone across the park in those two sides are just fearless, and anyone can strike from anywhere. So good to watch.
Isaiah,
he's the best.
Far out.
Just like your grandpa, isn't he? Like,
he just when Nathan went off, obviously you looked at whoever comes on and whoever's in the halves, but he just steps up, plays footy, knows when to actually pull the trigger and play at the back, plays direct, knows how to get his team on the front foot, so it helps his halves to roll on that play. But he's unbelievable. I think he'll be the biggest loss to that club when it happens. he'll be the one that is a massive loss because obviously he's a bit older than Nathan. He'll be the first to go. It'll be interesting to see.
How old is he? I joke to say grandpa because that's the ultimate compliment. I wasn't being disrespectful. You speak to guys at Penrith, and it'd be nice that if we ever got an opportunity to speak to Nathan about his leadership. We speak about Boyd Cordner in that glowing light as a leader and that similar hard, steady, consistent personality. But how old is he?
He's 30.
Yeah, 30. See, I mean,
so he's still got plenty of time left.
Yeah, but you think he's just, that's what I said, it was total respect. That grandpa, he's just that wise leader, and you're just so it's just like the father figure for him, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's been around for a while. He's obviously won the 4 grand finals. He's been a big figure at our club, and we knew him before Nathan come through, so that's why you think he's a little bit older. And the team that we were critical of the start of the year over in Vegas, the New Zealand Warriors, went back home on the weekend and they gave it to the Sydney Roosters. The Roosters were flying high after their win in round 2 against the Panthers, but the Warriors, they impressed me again. Yeah. And I was critical of the Warriors from round 1 over in Vegas for the reasons were going very lateral, trying to set up plays for plays, weren't playing north-south footy. They were just passive in what they were doing. They were just trying to set up plays and they weren't playing to their strengths. Last week when they get a win, they play their strengths away. I thought Wade Egan was outstanding. Metcalf and Tavita Harris were outstanding because they played direct and they wanted to run the ball. Same again on the weekend. They play north-south footy. They roll up the park first. They go forward first and then play footy. They're not waiting for the big play. They're not waiting to get to a 6 or a 4 or a 50 and then have a shot. They're playing on the back of momentum. Go forward. And while some parts of the game was ugly, they just stayed in the fight and that's my word of the day, stay in the fight.
I love it. Stay in the fight and stay consistent and green ticks. Mate.
Green lights.
You should be a professor.
Tick. Yeah. What did you think of him?
No, I love the way you put it there, Toddy. It was a great. I think that summed the game up in the perfect way. What'd you say? Stay in the fight.
Stay in the fight.
But that's what both teams did to an extent. I just thought that the Warriors I thought it was a pretty average game, to be honest. Like as far as comparing it to the top sides. Warriors at home, they scrapped a good win. I thought that was probably the best way to put it. I thought they scrapped a good win. Roosters looked likely at a couple of occasions down that left with Mark and Toops there, but
they had some opportunities, both teams.
They did, yeah. But I think, looking likely and then turning that into building pressure and points for the Roosters is where they're at a little bit at the moment. I think there was opportunities there to sort of capitalise and they just couldn't mount that pressure. And as you just said, the Warriors, on the other hand, north-south footy straight up the middle, and they pinned the Roosters in their corner a lot of the game. They really bashed their back three into a corner, and it was good to watch from the Warriors, as you said. It was they're building nicely. They obviously struggled in round 1, but since then they've sort of got back to what works, that power game and playing through the middle, and Metcalf starting to find some form. As you said, Wade Egan as well off the back of that. But it's probably what we were going to expect. I thought the Roosters travelled over there. Obviously, the poor game in the first game, bounced back last week. They showed promise again, but there's some immaturity there, isn't there? And it's probably what you're going to get with the turnover of players and the situation they're in. But when we say immaturity, there's probably moments there where sticking the knife in the coffin and really burying teams and going after them and capitalising on your half opportunities into points is probably the thing that's letting them down at the moment. But yeah, it was, Warriors are coming along nicely, aren't they? Obviously, poor start to the year, but I think they're going to struggle with that style of footy against the top 4 sides still. But if they can get some momentum and then slowly keep building, they'll be thereabouts.
Yeah, I think if they continue to build pressure, understand their strengths, and their strength straight away is Barney and Fisher Harris up front. So that will get the start of their sets rolling. They're going to be missing Roger for a while now. He had a bad hamstring tear on the weekend in that try, save and tackle. And massive credit to him to one, push off and get to him and save the tackle. But, yeah, he would be missing for a while. But they understand their strengths now. And when you spoke about they kicked to the corners and they just kicked high and long and made the Roosters keep coming out of their own end. While we said it was scrappy, someone had to win that game, and the Warriors come up trumps. Like the Roosters obviously threw plenty at them. They had some opportunities, some last pass that didn't stick. If they stick, Roosters win the game. So it's a massive. I think it's a massive win for the Warriors, because previous times I'd let that game slip, but they stayed in it and held the Roosters out, and they're looking all of a sudden looking like contenders for that top 8 spot. When, like you said, we don't see them contending against the top 4 teams if they play very similar, but if they can continue to get better, I see the Warriors potentially in that top 8 now, because they've found their groove and their rhythm, the way they're playing. And I like this when we talk about halves. I like that they're having a dip, they're having a crack at running the ball, playing together, playing out inside and outside each other. They're actually connecting together, and they're not letting other people jump in and sort of set up the play for them. They're doing it themselves. And when you do that more often than not, you're getting a lot more control of what you're doing through the team. So you're not chasing the ball, the ball's coming to you. So I like what they're doing there.
How good was Tavita Harris's try, a little chip and chase?
He's got confidence. It looks like
nice.
he's got a bit of groove, and hopefully he grows on that. And when your halves are growing in confidence and they're playing eyes up footy, it's a whole lot easier for the rest of the team, because then they just have to play their job. And if Wade Egan rolls his forwards up the park and lets the Fish and Barnett get quick play the ball and stuff like that, everyone has joy. Yeah. It's then to understand, when they're not on the front foot, how they actually play their footy.
It was Wade Egan's huge for him, isn't he? He's their main man there. Any of their success they had a couple of years ago, he was as you said, that north-south. It's a good analogy. Playing upstream with their big forwards and then a bit of second phase off it. But
well, there's a reason why the rugby league field's longer than it is wide, because the objective is to go the long end to score. So why run sideways? Add
that to the Tolkani quotes of the day.
Well, before we go into the Broncos and Cowboys, and I don't know if you've noticed it or if it's just my footy nerd, do you notice a lot of teams, when they're not set or they're attacking the other team's line, there's a lot of just one out, sort of in around the ruck, dropping blokes under, having a crack in the line? Are they playing for a 6 again, or are they just trying to wear the middle out?
This is in good ball?
Yeah, in good ball.
Yeah, I think maybe the speed of the game now, maybe it's a chance for teams to just have a little breather, or they're getting too fixated on setting up for structure. It'd be cool to actually.
And they see that they can just get a dive over try, an easier try than sort of playing footy.
Yeah, it's a good question. I can't fully answer it right now. It's obviously, I think it differentiates to each team. Obviously, some sides I think are definitely going to those set-up plays because they play better off structure, and some of their young halves need more of a pattern. But you might be right there. It might be more purely just for a power play where they use it to a change of angle to barge over and create a try opportunity. But yeah, you're seeing it a lot more in the game. I haven't really picked up on it as much, to be honest.
I picked up on heaps over the weekend, and I don't have an issue with it. It's just more, you see a lot of nines just getting out, dropping blokes under, playing very short, and then just going to their half on play 5. But then you see a lot of 6 agains on the back of it because of the ruck infringement, slower ruck, and there's some dive over tries.
Might be worth looking into. Might be a little ploy from the coaches now, seeing some opportunity there. Lazy markers, guys not fixing right around the ruck and seeing some opportunities to get 6 again. But the game's so quick now, isn't it? I mean,
but it's super fast.
Some of those 6 agains in the middle of the field are just like winning gold.
Yes, when we talk about gold, the 4X gold was flowing in Brisbane on Friday night. The Cowboys and the Broncos went at it, and the Broncos 26 over the Cowboys 16. And this it wasn't a convincing performance by the Broncos, but they got the job done. They got the job done on the back of Adam Reynolds and Payne Haas and Pat Carrigan. I thought they were exceptional for the winning team. The Cowboys went at them. They wanted to go into a dogfight. I think they seen what the Raiders done previous week against the Broncos down there in Canberra. They went at their forwards. Early on in the game, it was tit for tat. The Broncos get out to a lead, and then Cowboys fight it back. But like I said, those two guys or three guys I mentioned, Pat Carrigan, Payne Haas, and Adam Reynolds. Adam Reynolds just, when he's on, he's on. He just, if he gets pushed into a corner, he'll find a kick. And every time he kicks, he hits the spot. He was outstanding on the weekend. And there's always going to be clunky parts of the game for the Broncos because when you got two sevens playing together, like they still trying to work out who's on the ball or who's calling the play. And the big challenge for that is Reece working out what way he's meant to go. And I think he's trying to find his way to playing with those two, but he showed some good signs, but he had a fair few errors again, and he looked frustrated in parts, which is you do when I've been myself when I've been in a form slump and you're trying to get out of it, and then you have an error, it compounds and goes again. You have another error, and then all of a sudden you're punching yourself and you're frustrated. So hopefully he gets out of it and finds his groove again. But yeah, the Cowboys had a crack. But sometimes having a crack just isn't good enough, and the Broncos are too good.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys, I thought they like you said, they fought well. They obviously backs against the wall, similar to what we said about Dolphins and what was the other side we spoke about earlier? Was that a brain snap?
Dolphins
and
Eels.
Dolphins and Eels, sorry. Both those sides,
yeah.
we knew they'd get a response. I thought the Cowboys did some really good stuff. You're obviously live at the game, but yeah, for me watching closely, Reno was outstanding. I love that play where he put Shibasaki through midfield, doubles up his plays, and then the old dog gets a show and go. Had a grubber after the first try, I think it was, that was just a little missed opportunity, hit the upright. But yeah, he had his hand in everything, and he's been such a good seven, Reno, isn't it? His short kicking game from the day he debuted to now is been the benchmark. He's taken full control of that team, and he's been great, but it's a luxury for him and Benny Hunt and Walshy there to play off the back of those forwards when they're on. Payne Haas and Carrigan, as you said, are just out of this world when they're when they're in the zone and getting you good go forward, and it's a halfback's dream. You did highlight Walshy. I still think there's a lot of errors in his game at the moment, and I think you put it perfectly that, when you're in a bit of a form slump and you're trying to find your way out, there's no doubt his plan B is to probably overplay and force his hand a little bit. He just needs to get back into the groove. You also touched on him trying to fit where he fits in within that structure. They're obviously playing very much left and right, and Benny Hunt and Renault are trying to sort of still find their combination. So maybe there's a little bit of teething problems there where he fits in, but a lot of his errors are coming off a few individual things. It's not as much structure. So yeah, he needs to probably, the growth of him is going to also be the growth of the Broncos. I think he's that X factor, and as soon as he finds his flow, they're going to go to another level. But the Cowboys are in a world of hurt, but I did think they played well. There was some good shapes there, especially to the left, that got them back in the game. Some nice hands there with Drinkwater and Dearden there on the left edge. Some nice footy, but yeah, it was good to see they had to put up a fight, especially the amount of points that they've been leaking over the last few weeks. They've been close to 75-plus points in the opening round, so they definitely tidied that bit up, but just not good enough again. Yeah,
they definitely weren't good enough again, and I spoke about it last week, and I don't like to harp on it because you shut it down, but I'm going to ask it again. Do you think Drinkwater needs to play 7?
No, I don't think.
Because there's talk there's that Jackson Purdue's a good fullback, and I only say this because Adam Jackson was on the sideline the weekend. They mentioned something about that Purdue could potentially play fullback. So there's obviously talk about it. Do you think it works?
They've got to try something, but I just think with Drinkwater, not knowing him or being around him at training, but it just seems it'll take away a lot of his flair and his creativity if he has to play on that on-ball half and be that dictator, and how that side effect is to the rest of the team. Like, does that all of a sudden make them more predictable than I wouldn't say they've been predictable at the moment, but does it make them more predictable than what they already sort of the situation they're in?
Yeah, good point.
So I think that's the worry, and it just the fact that is that coming from inside the camp, or is that just media talk? Because I was going to say
it could be media talk, could be just me talking shit. I don't know.
Yeah, I was.
But I was in commentary the other night, and Adam Jackson was on the sideline. We spoke about to be asked what their options are Sorry, Elliot Lovejoy asks what their options are in those positions if they were to move someone like Drinkwater to 7 and who would go fullback. And they said there's obviously Jackson Purdue.
He's very quick, isn't he? That last try opportunity he got.
But he's fast, yeah.
He's quick as.
Yeah.
They've got enough there. That's not their issue, is it? Like on the weekend, once again, I thought they were sharp. On that left edge there with Dearden and Drinkwater at fullback, obviously that's his position, and that's where I think he needs to stay. There was some okay shapes there. They pulled the Broncos down a few times, and there were some opportunities. Mate, we say it every week. They just got to, which they had small improvements defensively, but they got to get that right. They got to get their defense right, which will give their attack confidence, and then I'm sure that the spine that they got there will do damage off the back of that. They're in a bit of a hole right now. You got to tell you this for Cowboys fans that are listening. The year they won the comp, they lost 4 in a row, and I think it was the 5th game when they were about to lose. Jonathan Thurston kicked the field goal. I'm sure the boys here would know more, but I remember watching it, and that was the year 2015 when they won the comp, and they lost 4 in a row. So don't lose hope. Plenty of teams have been in these situations and bounced back, and your own club's done that. So there's opportunity there. And let's be honest too, no one remembers round 2, 3, 4 when you're in the finals.
That's right.
But they need to turn it around quickly. And it was a small improvement on the weekend, but there's still a long way to go.
So one of the words of the week, Cowboys, was stay in the fight. So you stay in the fight. And I think to get him in the fight, I think Jeremiah Neno probably needs to go back to his right side in back row. He sat on the bench for a long time on the weekend, then went on and played left back row. Got through a fair bit of work, showed his intent, ran hard, but I feel he's a natural right side player, and maybe move Bateman through the middle would open it up a little bit more sort of momentum for him.
Yeah, Bateman's I like that, having him in the middle, a bit more leg speed, maybe coming off the bench, coming on. What was the atmosphere there like live, Toddy? You think the Broncos
47,000. It was a different. I was talking to someone after the game. They're talking about that there was a different feel. Like usually when there's a Queensland rivalry, there's a bit more happening, but it was sort of a little bit of a eerie feeling. One, probably because the Cowboys aren't going as good as they usually are, but they did put it to the Broncos. I guess there's a question mark. Is the Broncos a top 4 team?
I was just going to ask you the same thing after you're talking, but that's I want to think they are, because I love watching them play. It's probably not what you want my answer to be, but I want to think they are, because I love watching them play, and they've got so much talent, and on paper they should be, but there's still a little bit of the stuff we saw last year in their game a little bit at the moment for me.
Yeah, what you spoke about in commentary about is if they gave a team that's in the top 4 or is going to push for the top 4 as much ball they gave the Cowboys on the weekend, and how many times but to credit to the Broncos, they pushed the Cowboys out about 5 or 6 times in that first half, and then got down the other end and scored, which always happens a lot. Teams that are on the attack, can't actually put any points on the board. Get out of it, they give away a penalty, go down and score, and that's what happened on Friday night. But we even said it in commentary, are we seeing a Broncos team that's going to push for the top 4? And there was mixed opinions on it. Well, they were saying on paper, yes. By performances at the moment, no. Can they get to that? Of course they can, because the quality that they've got. So there's still a long way to go for the Broncos, but I feel they'll be there. And when the big moments come, they'll be thereabouts, because they've got those players that step up. They've still got Tony Staggs to come back into that team. So
it's just a question for you, Tony. We talk a lot about completions. And I'm sure fans listen every week and go, if only our team completed well, we would have won. Why do these top sides, and you talked about DNA earlier, but why do these top sides complete better consistently? And the sides that are up and down, we talk that bipolar rugby league team, why is it so hard to complete? Is it just luck? Is it knowing your systems and structures that gives you more composure than that leads to completions? What is it for the fans?
Well, sometimes you don't go out to make a mistake. It's just poor skill. See, that there's up to an individual, but the rest of it comes from the guys steering the ship, so the 6, 7, 9 usually. And then it's then knowing how to play the long game, understanding what their strengths are. If they kick to the corner and they keep turning teams away and turning teams over, that they'll make a mistake. So when you're in the top tier, you've got the luxury of having that going into the game. Where we're playing against a team that's not as good as us or below us on the ladder, they're gonna take risks to try and score points to get out of what they're going through. So we talk about the Tigers on the weekend. They completed 84%, I think it was. They stuck to it, and where before Tigers wouldn't have been like that. They would just sort of try and chase points. Where on the weekend they let it come. They built to the win. They kept going back to what they would do best, and they were rolling down the park, kicking long, making the Dolphins come out of their own end. Then they'd make mistakes. It comes down to the whole team, but also comes down to the halves knowing where they're going to kick, when they're going to kick, what's best for the team. So a lot of it comes down to those systems and structures because, like I said, you don't go out there to make a mistake coming out of your own end. It just happens because it's a poor error from a player. But it seems to happen more so to the lower teams, and that's why they're probably on the bottom end of the ladder instead of the top because they can't do the small things right, and that's complete and get out of your own end. One team that's not having any issues of completing and get out of their own end because their back three or back five are unstoppable is the Cronulla Sharks 27 over South Sydney 12. And this team, Cronulla, we've been critical of them before. Well, not critical of them. There's always question marks, and I don't always believe it's right, question marks in Nico. But him and Trindle's combination on the weekend, Nico was free. Trindle's in everything. He's playing like a natural first receiver. He's opening up the field for Nico. Nico had some touches on the weekend, was the brilliance what we've seen when he was at Melbourne Storm. He had options. He had an option to run and an option to pass. And more often on the weekend, Nico ran and was really good to see. So congratulations to them. They were outstanding on the weekend, and there's been a lot of talk about South for their first two performances, but Sharks showed them what it's like when you come up against a strong outfit.
Yeah, they were so good to watch. You spoke about their outside backs, Mulitano, Iro, and Kennedy there. They were just outstanding. That length of the field try that they scored from inside the goal line, and then just unbelievable power, strength, and instincts and speed. Another play late in the game, which was just all instincts and natural talent. But, the halves as well. Obviously, I thought the balance of them was the best we've seen them for a long time. They shared roles. We speak about that a lot, but they shared roles. They looked really tidy. Nico had his hand in everything, scored a try. They both scored a try. Trindle's come up with 2 40-20s. Nico had another opportunity where he kind of played down and schemed down a short side with a missed opportunity, but it was just good balance between long game, eyes up footy, and then ice in the moment with that field goal at the end. So it was a really complete game for them. And we talk about having a platform to play off as halves. Not only have they got Fanua Blake and the pack that they got, but to have the outside backs they have, they're not only are powerful and strong, but to be able to just create line breaks from anywhere. They really are a pretty good team, aren't they? And
is Mulitalo in your top three wingers in the game at the moment?
Yeah, I love him. How good is he?
He's unbelievable. He's in everything. He puts his body on the line. He has a crack and he tries things.
He looks like such a team player too. He's always smiling. Don't know the guy, but every time you see him in interviews, he's loving the boys. He's always in there slapping up. He's a bit of a personality. So, they've got such a good, like I said, personalities in their group. They look really. There's a lot of love there. They're obviously led from Fitzy. There's always that little bit with the Sharks because we've seen this before. We've seen this storyline and narrative before. Start the season well, and their test will be at the back end of the year. Without being hard.
Well, Fitzy won't be happy with the points they leaked at the end of the game. They were never a threat of losing the game, but obviously South had to do something. They threw a bit of footy around. And
it was when Humphries went to lock, wasn't it, Toddy, at the end?
Yeah, and Bud Sullivan went to halves, which was an interesting one if that's where Wayne might move it in coming weeks. So it was an interesting one. But, I've got a massive rap on the way Trindle's playing. He looks confident. He looks switched on. Obviously, last year he had his concerns around away from footy, but it looks like he's dialed in at the moment. And I think, man, that's what you're getting from the way he's playing. He's got that instinct to, like, when he went down that short side and someone rushed him, he'd come off his inside foot and beat him on the outside and scored himself. It's just he's goal kicking and just
he's a little gun, isn't he? Just that
40-20 kick was unbelievable.
I know, two in one game. That wouldn't happen for a while.
No, he's it's
Todd Carney's specialty.
I love the 40-20. I'm still toiling if I should play again this year.
You're gonna go again?
Maybe. We'll see.
Byron.
Nah, Byron's moved on from me, and it'd been a good 6 years for me. I've got an opportunity maybe to go to. There's 2 clubs I'm talking to at the moment. I don't know. Susie's not a real fond of the idea, but I haven't missed a year of footy since I was 4 years old.
You're missing it.
It's going to be a big hole in me. We talk about those small wins, and I don't have a goal each week or end of each week to play footy.
You're crazy. 39, still wanting to play.
Yeah.
But they are Cronulla. How do you see Cronulla, Toddy, on as far as against the top? You know, your Melbourne's put Cronulla in that game on Friday night against Melbourne.
I don't know. Well, I'll judge that when they play him.
Yeah.
But at the moment, they're doing the right things. They're winning games when they have to win. They've won 3, and I've got to correct myself from the start of the show. The Cowboys have lost their 3 games too, so they're one of. So there's not 2 teams on the bottom. There's 3 that haven't registered a win. So I miss that. But yeah, I see the Sharks. They're going to be thereabouts. They'll be there for the finals. They'll be there for. But it's like you said, there's concern sometimes with the Sharks of how they go mid-year. But they've got some new players there, some players that they won't be affected too much by Origin, I don't reckon. They'll keep their halves, they'll keep their fullback. Brayley could be an option for New South Wales at a pinch, but they'll keep most of their team around Origin. The Tigers 30 over the Dolphins 18, and I commentated this one. Wasn't live, I was in studio calling it, but disappointing from the Dolphins again. There was talk from the start of the year that they weren't making excuses, but people were making excuses for them about their travel they had to do round 1 with the Cyclone down to play South. Then last week, and they were the same. They were poor. Back home at KO Stadium, packed house, packed as much as you can get there into KO Stadium, and they had so many opportunities. They were in front 18-12 with the game just still obviously a long way to go. But we spoke about the Tigers. They stayed in that fight and just played consistent game. They played the consistent long game. We spoke about north-south footy, playing long, rolling on the momentum and not waiting to set up plays. They played on the back of their go-forward. And their go-forward was unbelievable. We spoke about Terrell May, but I'm going to give his front row partner, Fanua Bole, a rap too, because he was outstanding on the weekend. And for me, the Tigers won from their bench. They were just Royce Hunt, Jack Bird, Sione Fanu. De Silva. They were way better than the Dolphins bench, and that's where I think Tigers won there. Where'd you see it?
Yeah, I just think you nailed it. You know, the creams rises to the top. We're starting to see the recruitment plan of the Tigers and the quality that they're signing, winning them games. Api Coruscant comes up with the try to win the game at the end. When the game is in the balance, Jerome Luai steps up. Galvin plays off the back of him as a foil and then comes up with big moments. Taruva's getting tries. You know, they're starting to get finishes. And then, as you said, Terrell May and Hunt off the bench. But Terrell May, the minutes he's playing, like he's just relished in the change, and we've given him plenty of compliments last week. But yeah, they the most impressive thing about the Tigers was being down at the start of the game. It wasn't a perfect scenario for them. It wasn't a game of feel good for the Tigers where they're playing at Leichhardt and they're local fans and everything's sticking for them. They had to grind. They had to stay patient. So it was a real growth for the Tigers we haven't seen in a long time. And as I just said, that's what you get when we get these quality players. You pay for what you get, and you bring winners into your team, and you start to get these results. And Dolphins came out of the blocks quite well. I thought Nikorima was looking the best he's looked all year. Got a nice try, had his hand in a couple of plays. The Tigers had to fight hard for this one, but it was an impressive game. Wasn't a perfect game. They showed some resilience though in defence. They had to handle some onslaughts from the Dolphins. Kept turning up, and then just key players for me: Terrell May, the two halves again, Buller, and then obviously Api Coruscant, one of the best. Just takes it in his own stride to get them the result there at the end. But just on the Dolphins, and I spoke about at the start, haven't seen too much improvement. To me, just unless they're going well and they're in that, they're throwing a few punches in periods of games. It goes back to that robotic style, doesn't it, Toddy?
Yeah, and they were, when they lost the game, they went to that patches. But I want to give a rap to Isaiah Katoa, the way he played in that first half. He was in everything. He played square, he played direct, but he played with intent. He dug into the line. He changed the way he played. He went from the left side to the right side. He set up a few nice tries. He gave his outside players options. The way he went crossfield, had a nice sort of dummy cross and then played square at the back. I thought he was really good, and it's positive signs for the Dolphins. I just think the players around him need to lift another level. I think the hammer at the back is still finding his groove. I know by the middle of the year around Origin he'll be firing, but it's you don't want to be too late. I think he needs to compliment him a little bit more.
How do you get Hammer going, Toddy? He's obviously, we see his best footy in Queensland and Australia in the centres and wing. How do you get him going?
It's a hard one because it seems like even when he's got the ball coming from fullback, he's not his electric himself. So I don't know if it's a confidence thing. It might be a whole team confidence thing, but I don't think he's playing as good as he'd like to or people expect him to be playing. I just think it's a transition. Obviously, there's always a transition from when Wayne leaves the club, finding new systems, different voices around the club. I feel their roster's a little bit below par. And I spoke about it, their bench.
In what parts of their game? The middles?
Well, yeah, through their middles. They're not finding – there's an ageing roster through the middle, Kafusi. They've got obviously Tommy Gilbert at 13. A lot of teams at 13s they're playing a bit of footy. Obviously, Tommy Gilbert's his works on attitude and effort area, which is great. I think he's an outstanding player, Tommy. But you look at other teams that – or if you go, obviously, the Tigers bench on the weekend, they had Royce Hunt, Jack Bird, Sione Funan, and De Silva. And the Dolphins bench was Stone, Mark Nichols, Kurt Donahue, and Owen Keeley went back to the bench on the weekend, and Fini Fuawaki started. So they've got punch, but I just think it's that they're just finding that consistency. Your word of the day is consistency. Inconsistency. They're more consistent in their plays.
They're more consistently consistent.
Yeah. And I'll tell you one play that your word consistent, and I'm going to bring it up again, and I'm going to be the stat man again. 65 minutes he played, Terrell May on the weekend, 19 hit-ups, 182 metres, but the impressive one again was his 42 tackles and one miss. He's missed 3 tackles in the first 3 rounds. And then that other guy I gave rap to was Finua Bole. It was 56 minutes, 22 hit-ups, 18 hit-ups, 212 metres.
Yeah.
So they're players that they've signed and the impressive signings over the off-season are producing for them, and that's why they've got him to the club. And massive, massive credit to the Tigers. You listen to Benji after talk about it after the game that they're finding something. Yeah. You'll still see the inconsistent sides of the Tigers, but Benji's words were, stay in the fight, just keep fighting. And they done that on the weekend, and they didn't do it by playing out their backsides or throwing it out the back. They done it by staying in it consistently, rolling forward, kicking long, playing the long game, making the Dolphins come out and turn the ball over. And then the brilliance of Api Coruscant down near the line, roll someone over, scores a try, shapes for a field goal, rolls a dummy and does it all himself. They just 1-2 punch. They were too good.
Yeah. They're getting well coached, aren't they? And it's great to hear. Love watching interviews after games and watching players' responses. I think the Tigers of old, a win like that was like a grand final win. We won, regardless how they won. Where a lot of their wins lately, well, the 2 wins that they've had, and even the loss, was very strategic. They're very calm after their losses. They're honest about where they're at. It's a real good sign of the group and where they're at. Fainua was it that came up with the big tackle late in the game? Fainu that came up with the tackle late in the game, and Appy I think was involved in that. Mate, they were up back slapping like there was a brotherhood created there, and that's what you get when you get Jerome, Terrell, these type of guys to your club that are winners, and add that to their side. But they're just for me that's the most impressive thing. From Benji to the senior players, the way they're talking after games. They're clear where they're going. They're on a path, but they're improving, and they know what they're trying to get as a group, and they're united. So for fans listening for the Tigers, and we've been in these type of teams, when you're happy with a win, but you know where you're going, and you've got a united group, success is going to come quick for them. So I think it was just worth noting that because it's been really, really noticeable for me. Their body language, their togetherness, and their responses after games. So keep at it, Tigers. You're going to get there in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, they've got an impressive. The kids coming through. Obviously, Lockie Galvin's. He's got a bright future ahead of him. But they talk about the players they've brought in. They're all winners. They've all won at some point. Obviously, Terrell May's come from the Roosters, but Coruscant was started at the Panthers. So they haven't had that. They haven't been around all the wooden spoons all the time. All these players are there. So they've got a plan, and they've got a plan that's they're executing, and hopefully they continue to get better. The Tigers.
What's their biggest improvement for you? For me, it's having the balance between mounting pressure and then applying defensive pressure, and then obviously playing that ad-lib style, which is a hard balance, and that's a lot of the talk coming out of them as well. But where do you see the biggest growth? If we're talking Tigers top 8 this year, what is it?
Well, I spoke about it from round 1. I thought they played conservative. They just got to their points in the field and tried to have a shot from as you practice at training, where the last 2 weeks they've used their middles to go forward. They haven't waited for the perfect play to play footy. They've played on the back of an ad-lib footy momentum, quick play the ball. They roll down the middle of the field, and their long game. Jerome Luai to be consistent enough to know, let's get to the end of our set. I'll kick it long to a corner. I'll make him come back out and stick into that, not going away from that plan. Obviously, Lockie Galvin's, he can play ad-lib, he can play controlled, and Happy Coruscant around the middle, he knows what he's got there. They've got to go forward and just stick to it. And I think they're just going to continue to get better, the Tigers, and you got to expect sometimes that they'll come up, their old habits will fall back in, but on the weekend they'll much improved, and improvement is going to get better every week.
Go the Tigers.
Go the Tigers. Your old team, the Newcastle Knights, made the trip up to the Gold Coast on Saturday, and the Titans 26 over the Knights 6. I missed this game because I was in the car, but I had a good look at the highlights. Just the brilliance of those players for the Titans that we spoke about in Brisbane, Campbell, Kinney, but Big Tino, like coming back from second game back from ACL injury, he's got better, which is hard to sometimes play, but he's actually looks like he's better than what he was when he done his knee. And the Knights, they were just you touched on it when we spoke last night, that they were just on the road, and it was a typical Knights performance.
Yeah, I think the Knights, they've come off a big win the week before. I think they just tried to go to winning the game too early instead of building that long game. We speak about it a lot, but Titans, full credit to them. You just touched on Tino, David Fafita, these guys. When they step up, we spoke about it the other week around the Titans' defence and why they're suffering with the pack that they got. Like, their pack's so good. Bo Furman there's a steady player and a good worker, but their middles were just outstanding, got them on the front foot, and then we see the results of Brimson and Campbell off the back of that. It's the perfect ingredients for them, isn't it? Front foot footy, your forward pack being the hunter and going after the opposition. They have a field day, and that's what we got. Campbell had a nice show and go himself. He was in everything. He he had a super performance. But yeah, I thought their two best were Fafita, who played longer minutes, and then obviously Tino as well. But yeah, it was a great performance. It was a gritty first 15 minutes. I watched the game closely. I thought both sides were in the fight early. It was quite dewy conditions up there, and the Titans have to fight hard early, but they held fort in the middle, and they were too big and strong and too classy in the end for the Knights, which we tend to see the Knights this inconsistency from week to week, especially on the road. I just think that they go to when they're not playing their best, they're going to quick fixes all the time. They go to quick fixes too early, which leads to a lot of errors, ill-disciplined footy. I think they had 17 plus errors in the game, and their possession completion was really poor. It wouldn't have been much over 50%. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but that's what it looked like watching from a spectator point of view. And that leads to 6 agains, and then that leads to front foot footy for the Titans, and then you see these guys capitalise. Your Campbells and Brimson. So
where does that come from at the Knights? Obviously, you played there. Where does it? Is it just a makeup of travel, or is it just where's that come from?
It's the question that no one's been able to solve.
Unless it was Joey before Joey.
No, honestly, you probably asked Joey. Well, Joey didn't have that problem, no, but he's an immortal, isn't he? But
exactly.
No, I don't know. I heard Wayne Bennett even say it when he left Newcastle that this he even struggled to get that full consistency year after year, and I'm not sure what it is there. Look, let's not jump the gun here. It's round 3, and the Knights are 2-0, but it's probably a conversation that we're having this early in the year because. We saw it in the round 1 against the Tigers. They scrapped the win. They weren't tidy. And then when they play at home, and I've been in those situations, played there, it's just a completely different energy when you play at home to on the road. I don't know if it's the travel. I don't know if it's I don't know what it is. But as I said, it's a question that we can't answer. We're not that smart. But
well, they beat Eels round 2, didn't they?
Who's that?
The Knights.
The Knights beat Dolphins. Up there.
Dolphins, round 2. So
that was my thing. I think the thing from week to week, and it was for me, it was that the performances the Knights struggle with is when they're going to they're not playing that long game. They don't, at home they build the game. They're powerful. They're fit. They're strong.
Well, it's a tough place to go to, Newcastle.
Yeah, and that's how they play when they're there. They can't. I feel like on the road they go to short fixes. They're trying to, which leads to a lot of errors and. Lack of composure. That's what it come across like. Who am I to know?
Well, you've been there. That's why I asked you. You didn't give me nothing. The impressive thing for the Titans, like you said, their middles, their go forward, they're going to continue to get better. But I think for them to continue to get better and better, their kicking game on the weekend, they gave a few 7 tackle sets just trying to, and that will come because they're not natural sevens or not natural kickers of the ball. You see that the way they drop the ball. Brimo still find his way to kick. Campbell takes a lot more of the kicking than Brimson. But yeah, that's just something that they continue to work on. But it was impressive from the Titans. They've registered a win, and Desi will be happy. But they're just going to continue to get better. I think with the blokes like Fafita and Tino, we've got that makeup there, so they know how to go forward. It's just the defence and then staying in it. But well done. They've got their first win of the season.
You just want Fafita to play 50-plus minutes every week.
Oh, he's so big.
Anytime he plays long minutes, he's just so damaging. And I get it, obviously, with the size of him and his endurance is probably not his greatest strength. So the situations of the games obviously affect his performances sometimes. You know what I mean? If there's lack of possession, he finds himself not having his best game sometimes. But when the team's on the front foot and he's playing big minutes, there's no one else in the world that you want on the field with his footwork and his power and his speed. So give him more minutes, Des.
A team that needed more minutes on the weekend was the Eels up against the Dogs. And I think if they got more minutes, they might have scraped away with the win. There was improvement, and I know you didn't like the word improvement, but my improvement on the game was Zach Lomax, 303 metres. He worked his backside off. He'd done everything possible to get his team a win, just come up short. And the Dogs missing Big Kickow and Burton. They stayed in it. I thought Toby Sexton on the weekend was really good again. He kicked the corners and just continued to turn the Parramatta team around. But yeah, where there's improvement. For me, there's improvement. Is Rolsey happy today for the Eels, or you just like, nah, there's not improvement?
I think firstly, from the Dogs, I think the Dogs. I think there's going to be a big couple of weeks for them. Fighting for wins over the next few weeks. I thought Burton not playing was very noticeable. I thought their attack in the second half, and I'm sure they'd admit this, there was very one out. They turned to there wasn't too much flow to their sets through the game. Thankfully, they were playing Parramatta where they weren't throwing too much at them either. But I thought without Burton's long kicking game, it just reinforced how important the size of his kick is and how much their game is built off Burton and his kicking game. Obviously, kick out there too on the left gives him so much X factor, the way he runs his lines, his options. But those two not being in the side, I thought it was a huge difference. Naturally, they're your two best players, but more pressure on Sexton to do a lot of the kicking. 100% he did a really good job, and I love watching his development and him as a player. But I thought the Dogs, to be critical of them, I thought they were very one out in the second half. They fought hard. It was a dogged performance. Parramatta drag you into that type of game. But yeah, I don't think they would be super happy. I know they're three and zip and they're flying, but I think they'd be saying themselves that it wasn't one of their better performances. And over the next couple of weeks playing against better sides, they're going to need an option kicker, and they're going to need a bit more to their game.
Well, they've got the Sharks this weekend.
They've got the Sharks this week, so there's the test. They're going to be all the pressure's on Sexton with his kicking. They're going to lose a little bit of that forcings back from the size of Burton's kick. So they'll be there. Their determination and their grit and the way they defend and hustle is so good. It's a top two side. But yeah, I think they're going to suffer a bit without Burton. It just shows his value to that side.
Yeah, well, it shows your value to. We were talking about Parramatta at the instance, saying, when Mitchell Moses comes back, they'll be a different team. Well, Dogs on the weekend lost their star 5'8" and their star back row kick out. So there's room for us to say, well, that's be complacent, and that's why if they were to lose that game, that'd be why. So we've got to take into context that they are big losses from that team, and they're their go-to for that team. So they are going to be up against the Sharks. Next weekend will be a massive test for them. But yeah, the interesting one that came out of this game was Curran. I don't know. I've never seen it before. He was falling back into the attacking line, and he said to the markers, "You're off, you're off, you're off." And then obviously the ref heard it because he was right next to him and called a penalty for unsportsmanlike.
Cameron Smith and Billy Slater would have got sent off every week then. They were the best at it, but you know what? Credit to them. They were smarter than the rest of us, and I just don't understand this one. I don't know if it was you talked about me being tired and going to bed after 12 o'clock and not getting my deep REM sleep. Maybe the ref did that the night before. Maybe he's in a bad mood, woken up, just wanted to you know what I mean? I'm going to be a prick today, and anyone who challenges me, I'm going to give away a penalty. Because to me, that's not a penalty. I
was listening to Joey talk about it after, and he said it's gamesmanship. It's having a crack trying to get your team off. I
thought you're allowed to negotiate with the referees. You're not allowed to talk down on the referee. You're not allowed to control the referee, but you're allowed to negotiate what you think, and in a respectful way. And that's the thing. We spoke about Cam Smith and Billy Slater. They were the best at this, and it was just. I remember playing them, and I learned a lot when I used to play up there. It was like they would talk their way out of, it was off kick receptions, kick transitions a lot of the time. Cooper Cronk put a nice little kick, and they would talk to the ref about your blockers of the kicks before that you'd kicked, to talk you out of kick pressures, and then also to make out that you were offside and blocking the, you know what I mean? They had it all. They were thinking about all this, and it was all little, as you said, little wins. Cameron Smith was constantly into the refs about guys being onside and checking markers that they were square. So I don't understand it. Yeah, well,
in this instance, the player, when he said Curran's going, you're off, you're off, you're off, the players obviously stayed out of the play. So it worked in there. It's smart. It is. It's he's sinking on the run, and
I don't think
he's playing outstanding football too, Curran.
I think the ref went to bed at 12:30 a.m.
Yeah, he did. He tell you what, he's not in our. He's inconsistent and consistent. He's not in the fight, and he didn't have any wins yesterday.
Get your green ticks, ref. What was his name?
Get your green ticks.
It was the ref. I'm checking his sleeping patterns.
I don't know. One team that did get a green tick on the weekend was against the Green Machine. Was the Manly Sea Eagles. It was our final game of the round at 4 Pines Park. Manly 40, Raiders 12, and I spoke to you just as the Raiders scored their first try, which was later disallowed, so I didn't get a chance to tell you. And then Manly just went on a rampage, piling on 24 points in a space of nothing. Man, they ran riot, and that was a concern for me because Raiders were in everything. They were on the front foot, score the try. Then it's just like they just had no dog in them after that. They just let Manly sort of roll through them and let Manly play Manly football. Big Paseka done his Achilles, which is a massive worry for Manly because we always talk about that they like to play on that front foot, and he's the start of their go forward. But Olakawatu on that right, holy hell! How do you tackle him?
I was watching him in the warm up with the size of him. They had the cameras on him on Fox. And he was doing like this, biting his mouth guard. Like, man, you wouldn't want to see him in a dark alley.
No way.
I want to be his best friend. But, mate, they were unbelievable. And we spoke about who's the best sides on the front foot with high possession, Manly and Melbourne, 100%. They got the best players to play off the front foot. It was a good thing, great result for Manly as a confidence boost as well. 40%, 50% results with Turbo playing or when he's not playing as far as wins and losses, and they did it without him. But yeah, 70% possession in the game. Garrick 4 tries. Cherry Evans having a field day. They were good from start to finish. As you said, the Green Machine, the Goulburn kid. We had a bit of confidence after the first try. Got the message off Toddy, Canberra's on today. And then after that, it was bye-bye.
Yeah, it was bye-bye. And yeah, the Raiders, Ricky will be disappointed up there today. He won't be happy this morning. It won't be a fun place to be in video. But
how do you stop Manly, honestly? Like, I don't care what team it is. When they've got that much possession, especially playing at 4 Pines Park, mate, they are unbelievable.
Minus Turbo too, this was.
Minus Turbo. But Garrick's great.
Whitey.
I love Garrick.
Garrick in the centres, 4 tries, 28 points, just ran riot. But they're hard when they're on their day. Like, it's hard to beat. It's when they don't get the rub of the green and they don't get that momentum and teams put pressure on them is how they find a way to win.
There's a big loss in the middle. That injury is a big loss for them. Like, I think the only thing that you speak about momentum and they need their big boys. Spoke about Olakawatu and how intimidating he is. And when you look at their pack, like, and when they're on and they've got possession, you can't stop them. It's just big semi-trailers coming at you. But when they're on the back foot and with a few injuries around their middle, that's going to be their Achilles heel. That's going to be the only thing for me that holds them back. And it's not great. Achilles, he's not coming back all year.
No, he won't be back for the year. So they'll have to fill that hole. Obviously, they've got Siwa come this year, but yeah, it's big Bullymore off the bench when he come on.
He was good.
2 tries. But yeah, it's the talk that come out of the game and listen to the commentary on the game last night is the Cherry Evans one. He's asked for 2 years. Are you Manly? If you're Manly, you sign him?
Of course.
Yeah,
and I'm not
there's no debate.
If I'm him, I'm pissed off for 600. We love seeing the boys get paid well, and mate, if I'm Cherry as a Queensland halfback, one of the.
What would you pay him?
He's over $1 million easy. The best thing, the clubs are clever, right? The age is always in their favour, and they can use that to lower your price and all that sort of stuff. Depends what Cherry wants, but from as far as what he wants, as far as I can't see him leaving Manly. He's a one club player. I don't think for the sake of an extra couple of $100,000 from the situation he's been in, he's going to leave the club to finish. Who knows?
The thing for you look at a club like Manly where he's been his whole career, and the relationship he'd have there will then determine if he stays again, regardless of what they pay him. You'd like him to stay because then obviously if you leave your club and you leave for 2 years and you go to another club, very rarely do players go back to where they left for 2 years and go back to it. So if he was to stay there, then they've got him for life, and they've got him working in their systems, working as a potential coach. It depends on what he wants to do with his footy, but
he's getting more than 600. Let's be honest.
I'd be paying him 950 to $1 million and give him what he wants, because let's be real, there's no one out there.
And he's still, and he's still one of the top 2-3 halves in the competition. So easily. And they said, from all reports, someone said the other day that giving him the ultimate compliment, just said he's one of the best athletes they've ever seen. Someone said about they reckon he wins every fitness drill, never misses a training session. The boys have told me for years though, like the 1.2 tests, a 1.2 kilometre test in pre-season, he wins everything. Like for 30.
Well, he's hardly ever injured. He's always in the game. He's one of their better players every week. So age is just a number. And in his instance, for us old fights, when we'll get in the back end, we're probably losing a little bit. But
he seems a bit more mature and calm than us. I was burnt out. My neural system was just fucked from all my anxiety and head noise.
You had too many late nights. You didn't get green ticks and red crosses. You didn't get more green ticks, where he'd get perfect green ticks every day with Cherry.
Imagine the way we're living now, though, we would have played to 50 the way we did this when we were early. Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Well, Canberra pretenders after their first 2 weeks, or is there concerns there?
No, I love Canberra. I think that's, as I said before, there's no one stopping that tidal wave of Manly at home. 4 Pines Park, 70% in favour of Manly without the ball. So you're defending it. You're coming off your back fence with 30% possession. It's a tough ask for the greatest of teams. So I think Canberra's in a really good spot. It'd be a little good kick up the backside for them. And I think, who have they got this week?
Cows
this week. So they'll be backing themselves to bounce back against them. No, I think they're in a great spot. I think, as I said, when the possession's so in favour of the opposition, it's sort of hard to get a measure of where they're at in this game. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think Canberra bounce back. I think they'll bounce back because the team they're playing, so it won't be gauging. I think when they play against one of the top teams, will be a gauge of where they're at. But there's obviously always good signs for the Raiders. They like their outside backs. They were still missing Tarpany on the weekend, so they'll get him back. But I just thought they were a bit flat, and probably as expected. They'd been up. They'd been to Vegas. They went up to they went down back home. Got up to beat the Broncos, so they just seemed very lethargic, and Manly took advantage of it.
Yeah, no, it was very, very, very good performance, Toddy. Manly at home, too hard to beat.
Well, that's a wrap of our reviews, and before we finish our reviews, I want to get your team of the round and your player of the round.
I'm going to go Manly for team of the round, and I'm going to go Garrick. I thought he was
Ruben Garrick. Very good.
4 tries. He's a great player, Ruben Garrick. A great clubman, I reckon. Watching him, I don't have much to do. I haven't had anything to do with him, but watching him, playing against him, whether he's played fullback, centre, wing, had a very good career. One of those
massive
guys.
Day for yesterday too. His partner had a little girl yesterday morning, so it was massive to get out there and go play with. Well, not so much a distraction; it's more of a joy once you have a little one.
How do you go with that if you've got the bub and you don't sleep all night? So he's going in the game off no sleep?
No, well, she would have been at Royal North Shore having the baby, wherever they have the baby over there, and so he probably would have got some sleep. But like I said, he'd be riding on a wave of emotions and excitement when you have a baby. So nothing's breaking that mood. So he definitely would have been ready to play footy.
Toddy, can you just to finish this show off, can you tell me what was the 4 tips for the day? Because I need some motivation.
Just wait. I haven't even gave you my team of the week or the player of the round.
All right, I'll be patient.
Be patient. I know you're tired and you want to go home and have a doo-doo. My team of the round is the Tigers, and my player of the round is Payne Haas.
Oh, what a freak.
What a freak.
Must have been good watching him live. How many minutes did he play?
He ran for 214 metres and he played 71 minutes.
214 minutes.
71 minutes, 23 hit-ups, 214 metres, 36 tackles and 1 miss.
Doing Ramadan with no water.
Yeah.
Honestly, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, very unbelievable. But, yeah, I'm going to go back to our 4 things for today. So when you're listening to this, to our footy nerds, inconsistent and consistent, you need to be consistent. You need to have more green ticks and red crosses. What was the other one?
Win the
fight. Footy field is longer than it is wider for a reason, because that's the objective, to go the long end to score.
That's the best.
What was the last one?
Stay in the fight.
Stay in the fight.
I'm staying in the fight, brother. Let's go.
And I'll leave that. I'll stay in the fight. George Foreman, the George Foreman grill. George Foreman passed away on the weekend. So Val George Foreman, the great George Foreman, one of the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time. So we're talking about staying in the fight. What a fighter he was. And obviously he earned more money out of his boxing career with his George Foreman grill.
George Foreman grill.
He did. He had to earn more money from the grill.
Let's stay in the fight today, brother. You've inspired me. I hope everyone else is inspired. What a weekend of footy. I'm pumped, man. I'm going for a run.
Go for a run. Before we finish today's show, like anything, we always have to thank our footy nerds and thank them for our support. And remember, get your questions in for Wednesday. We'll be answering them on Thursday. And look forward to seeing you all and having a great week.